Ladies and gentlemen, fight fans all around the world, we're going to talk some boxing. So, one of them is a hypothetical matchup, which would be Mike Tyson versus Muhammad Ali. We're going to talk about, and we're also going to talk about a real possible matchup that's going to happen in boxing, which is Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford. And we're going to talk about several other things, and it's also fueled by your comments. So, let's get into it. So Anthony Joshua recently stated that he thought that Muhammad Ali would be beaten by Mike Tyson, but he gave a reason for why he said so. He was particularly talking about Mike Tyson's quickness, but not only his quickness, but the fact that a smaller fighter like Joe Frazier gave Muhammad Ali all the problems in the world, broke his jaw in the first fight. And he said that Mike Tyson had some Fraser-esque sort of movements, and he thinks that those movements would give Muhammad Ali all kinds of problems. Do understand also that Muhammad Ali was not really much of an inside fighter. He didn't really have much of an inside game. He clinched up on the inside, and he thought that this was an opportunity for Mike Tyson to exploit that, seeing that Mike Tyson was a very good inside fighter and bobbed and weaved and so on. And he thought that Mike Tyson would give him all kinds of problems. Then, just to add some fuel to the fire, I'm adding that Mike Tyson was able to dispose of Larry Holmes, was an excellent jabber, very textbook, very good, come off the jab. Of course, he's not Ali, but Larry Holmes did beat Muhammad Ali. And this is why Mike Tyson actually beat Larry Holmes. So for those reasons, Anthony Joshua believes that Mike Tyson would beat Muhammad Ali. And those are good points. Very recently, there was a super series that was done in video game form. I don't know what was hosted by which sanctioning body, but there was a super series that was done. And in that super series, just to add some more fuel to the fire, Mike Tyson at the end of it beats Muhammad Ali. It's a computer simulated super series. Now, having said all of this, what do I think? What is my opinion on that? Well, I'll go through a couple things, and from that, I think we'll be able to wade through and decide. You guys will be the guys to decide that. I'm going to just give you the information, and then it's your opinion that really matters, which is, what do you think? But I'm going to give you some information to keep you more informed. So the first point, which is actually brought up by the Zone commentators, Sergio Mora, and the other guy from the Zone, who's a commentator, was one, Muhammad Ali fought a lot of top tier competition and beat them. Even Joe Frazier he beat, right? Joe Frazier still would land that left hook, but Ali showed how tough he was. If Mike Tyson doesn't knock you out, what is his next option? We saw that Mike Tyson very rarely goes the distance with his opponents, that he doesn't have a lot of 12-rounders or 15-rounders in the case of Ali's time. Mike Tyson does very well in the early parts of fights, but later on, what happens? We notice that he crumbled against Evander Holyfield. And Sergio Moore actually commented on this, that, his mentality was one in which he was basically a bully. Basically, Mike Tyson's mentality was he was ferocious, he's coming for you, and the intimidatory factor, like I said many times over, was what fueled Mike Tyson's wins. What happens when your opponent is not intimidated by you? Buster Douglas showed that. Bo Crusher Smith showed that. Razor Ruddock showed that. Holyfield showed that. Lennox Lewis showed that. And then a series of other fighters after that, who were not really top tier guys, showed that. The other thing is, but let me just wrap that point up, saying that did Mike Tyson have that mentality that if somebody upped their game and said, prove to me that you are what you are, that he would step up his game and prove to them that he was what he was. Usually he crumbled. And this is not words that come from me. This is actually words that came from Teddy Atlas, who was at one time an assistant trainer for Mike Tyson. So that's another factor. Muhammad Ali fighting much tougher competition on a consistent level and beating them. Okay, we're talking about he faced George Foreman. George Foreman was a guy that hit like a freight train and usually got guys out of there. And George Foreman also crumbled under Ali. Ali was able to withstand the surges of George Foreman for 8 rounds, tagging him up at certain points strategically, and then he was able to stop him. Right? Now, if Ali could stop a guy like George Foreman, if Ali could face a guy like Ernie Schaefer's, and undisputably, I believe George Foreman hit, the way how he hit, at least. I can't say for a fact, but I do believe just based on the size and bone structure, that George Foreman's punches had a much more drastic effect on his opponents, this much I can say, than Mike Tyson's punches did. Mike Tyson worked on speed, swiftness, the ability to ambush a fighter by landing a punch that they didn't expect at all, coming from an angle that they didn't expect at all. George Foreman would actually hit you with a punch that you actually saw, and it still had an effect of putting you down. So when you think of George Foreman and Ernie Schaefer's, which are universally considered one of the hardest punches in all of boxing, and you can see it, they had a crushing kind of punch. Not to say that I know for a fact that they were the hardest punches, because of course there were many boxers in boxing, and in two, I never got hit by them, so I can't really say definitively. But he faced those kinds of guys. George Foreman, he faced Joe Frazier. He faced Ernie Schaefer's. He faced Ron Lyle. These were guys that back in the day were considered really heavy punchers, and he was able to weather the storm and get past all of those guys. So when you talk about Mike Tyson versus Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson would have the swiftness, the speed, but Muhammad Ali was also quick and swift and had speed. Whether you're talking about supposedly in his prime or not, Muhammad Ali had those kinds of advantages. He had experience. Mike Tyson didn't have that experience with those kinds of top-notch, top-tier guys, and when he did, he fell short most of the time. Now, he did not fall short against Razor Ruddock. Kudos to him, but he had a tough fight with Razor Ruddock. He did not fall short with Bone Crusher Smith. He did fall short with a guy that was not even on his level, considered at least Buster Douglas. So after thinking about that, that's something to give you guys pause and thought about. The next thing is, Mike Tyson himself has acknowledged that he did not think he could beat the great Muhammad Ali. In fact, Muhammad Ali was his idol, and he just thinks that he didn't even stand in the shoes or even was able to hold the shoes or lace the shoes of a Muhammad Ali. So that's another point that we have to consider, that Mike Tyson, even in his own mind, didn't believe that he could beat Muhammad Ali. And that's a very important point. It's a very interesting point that we should put. Of course, I said that Mike Tyson was a front runner, which means, he was really great for 4 rounds, 3 rounds, 2 rounds, 1 round. But once you get past that, even though against Razor Ruddock, he did do an excellent job in the 8th, 9th round. But once you get past that, for the most part, that's where his greatest achievements are. He was able to stop guys really early. He was fantastic, he was sensational, explosive, very entertaining. But once you get past those rounds, Muhammad Ali was a guy that would beat you and punish you for as long as the fight went. And just looking at how Buster Douglas handled Mike Tyson, not to say that Muhammad Ali's style is anything like Buster Douglas's style. Buster Douglas, well, of course, was fighting mid-range to outside. Muhammad Ali was a strictly outboxer. But just having seen what Muhammad Ali did to fighters. Now, Muhammad Ali, the other thing that was a problem with Muhammad Ali, that's a disadvantage to him, and I'll get to that point, is, I think I'll mention it now, is he headhunted a lot. He didn't go to the body a lot. So if you want to slow down on Mike Tyson, who was muscle bound a lot, you want to really go to his body. And that's not easy to do because when you try to go to the body, a boxer can counter you to the head, especially with the left hook. And Mike Tyson had a triple left hook. He had a double left hook. So I could see Mike Tyson putting down Muhammad Ali that way. It was devastating, and it was quick and swift, and But having said that, Muhammad Ali, we saw Buster Douglas beat Mike Tyson using some of the shots and combinations that Muhammad Ali would beat Mike Tyson with. Okay. So I'm not saying that Muhammad Ali would beat Mike Tyson. I'm just giving you guys the points, and then you guys can decide for yourselves, considering all and weighing all the facts. Now, the other thing, so if mentally you're going into a fight thinking that this guy is superior to you, of course, guys who see their idols train even harder for their idols, and it's very possible that Mike Tyson would have given, he would have given the best effort he possibly could have against Muhammad Ali. But then the other thing about Muhammad Ali, we know Muhammad Ali would not have been afraid of Mike Tyson, and he would have been verbally assaulting Mike Tyson nonstop. It would have been a very explosive press conferences where Mike Tyson would have tried to hit Muhammad Ali, and Ali would have gotten under the skin of Mike Tyson, and Mike Tyson probably would have gone in there with a tremendous frenzy. And if Muhammad Ali weathered that storm, it would have been like George Foreman versus Ali again, rumble in the jungle. Okay? And Ali would have stopped Mike Tyson. So Ali knew how to get under the skin of a fighter. Mentally, remember, boxing is 90% mental, 10% physical. And so you have to factor in that Ali would not have been afraid of Mike Tyson, and he would have been throwing shade at Mike Tyson nonstop to tick off Mike Tyson and get under his skin. And some people will say, well, that's not a good thing to tick off Mike Tyson. Well, Ali wouldn't be afraid of Mike Tyson. Ali was a killer himself. So it would have been interesting to see how that would have gone down. Because Ali ain't going into no fight thinking he could lose, and he's not going into no fight to back down and lay down. He's not going to do like Larry Holmes did. He's not going to do like Michael Spence did. He ain't going to lay down, okay? And he would probably be in the mindset, I'm not going to get touched by this dude, and I'm going to make sure. Or he might have done like the rope-a-dope. Who knows? The point is, anyway, that Mike Tyson was vicious, quick. Even though he was small, he knew how to use his size to get to you. Now, the last point I want to make that favors Ali again, Mike Tyson could not fight going backwards. You will literally incapacitate Mike Tyson by making him have to box going backwards. If Ali took the fight to Mike Tyson, like how Tyson Fury did to Deontay Wilder, the likelihood of Mike Tyson surviving past 6 rounds is very, very slim. So if Ali understood that Mike Tyson couldn't fight going backwards, fight could be over really quick. Mike Tyson would crumble. And not to say that Mike Tyson is not a tough guy, but he just don't know how to fight going backwards. All right? He knows how to fight going forwards. He moves to the side and all of that, but his style does not allow him to go backwards. So if Ali understood that and started making him do something he didn't know how to do, he definitely would have won that fight. And Ali wouldn't be intimidated. So there's all of these factors you have to factor in when you're thinking about the fight. Now, here's another fact that favors Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson was a student of the game. Cus D'Amato taught Mike Tyson how to play the game very well. And like I said before, Mike Tyson worked with defense. Mike Tyson wasn't going to get hit just like that. And he was quick. One of the things about Mike Tyson that favor him is his body punching. Mike Tyson had some of the most pinpoint, accurate, precise body punching. And one way to chop down a tree is to go to the body. He changed levels so Ali would be shooting downwards, trying to get to him, like Joe Frazier, and he would come up with his punches, sometimes to the body, sometimes to the head. I can see Mike Tyson getting low, coming up top, and catching Ali a number of times with the left hook. He had a triple left hook and so on. I can see Mike Tyson getting to Ali and hurting Ali that way. Probably wrecking him. So that favors Mike Tyson. Now, the thing about it is, you have to ask yourself the question, who was the smarter fighter? And who could make the necessary adjustments so that they can win the fight? Remember, Mike Tyson can only do this if he's coming forward at you. He got real good game when he's coming forward. If you got to push him backwards, it's a problem. So all of those things, of course, Ali didn't have a real great inside game. He'd clinch you up and all that stuff. And Mike Tyson somehow found a way to avoid Ali clinching him up. Mike Tyson would again dominate the fight. So I want to hear you guys in the comment section, having heard all of this, understanding smarts in boxing is the most smartest guy in that ring would have won the fight. And of course, Ali was a very smart guy, and obviously he would have had a campaign. He would have been really nasty towards Mike Tyson to also kind of mentally make him doubt himself and break him down a little bit. And so think of it this way. Think of it this way. Even though Muhammad Ali came before Mike Tyson, styles make fights. Mike Tyson's style complements Ali's style very nicely, just like how Frazier complements Ali's style very nicely. George Foreman's style is different, and I don't know how Mike Tyson would do against George Foreman. But that Ali versus Mike Tyson would have been a fantastic fight, and as long as it lasted, because somebody was going to get knocked out, you would be entertained, because Mike Tyson had certain tools that would allow him to get to Muhammad Ali, and Ali himself had tools that he could use to get to Mike Tyson, and probably even a game plan, depending on what game plan he would utilize. The thing that I want to say is that when you look at Mike Tyson, there's another advantage Mike Tyson would have had over Ali. Now that I reflect on it, I think I lost my point. I lost my train of thought. But when you break it down, when you think about the attributes that these fighters had, how they trained, their fighting style, etc., you can see how Mike Tyson could beat Muhammad Ali, and how Muhammad Ali could beat Mike Tyson. One of the things I wanted to say, which I kind of forgot, it was an extra point that just came up. I just forgot it, but I'll put it in the comment section. Muhammad Ali came before Mike Tyson, but styles make fights. So my point was that Ali's style, because see, Muhammad Ali could fight box going backwards, forwards. His thing was he wasn't an inside fighter. That was his limitation. All right, which Mike Tyson could exploit. Mike Tyson was a great inside fighter. Okay, very crisp, very accurate, better than Joe Frazier. But he could not fight going backwards. Now, having said all of that, doesn't mean that Tyson couldn't impose his style on Muhammad Ali, because his style was so well done that it actually complemented Ali's style, which allowed him to get to Ali. And who's to say that Ali would actually fight Mike Tyson going forwards? He fought Joe Frazier going backwards, right? So it's all these little points that you must consider thinking about Mike Tyson versus Muhammad Ali. Now, considering all of that stuff I just said, there's some other points I wanted to make, but I can't remember them. The mentality of the fighters, etc., etc., etc. I want you to make the decision. I want you think about all the points I brought up, and you make the decision on who you thought would win between Mike Tyson and Muhammad Ali. My pick, personally, I'll tell you in the comment section. Now, back to the next one. Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence. It's a good fight. Ryan Garcia very recently said that he picks Terrence Crawford to F up Errol Spence. Did he give much of a reasoning? Yes, he did. He said that Terrence Crawford was a fighter who is just exceptional. He's like a bar above everybody else, he said. He said that just that he's not marketed right. And he wished Terrence would listen to him so he can give him a couple tips on how to market himself and get himself out there in a bigger way. Because Ryan Garcia is doing that right now. He's really greatly marketed, etc., etc., etc. But he went on to say something that was very interesting. He said that Errol Spence didn't give him his props and actually put him down for the way how he trains and fights, this rapid hand stuff, And he says Errol doesn't really understand. And so you can see that he had a little slight against Errol when he said what he said, because he was a little bit offended how Errol basically kind of put him down, sneak dissed him. So take that with a pinch of salt, as you may. But having said that, Errol Spence Terrence Crawford is considered a very skilled fighter. Errol Spence is still not considered as a skilled fighter like Terrence. No one's giving him his props. Even though he outboxed Mikey Garcia and did a number of really great things in there, they still think Terrence Crawford is a much more skilled fighter than Errol Spence. So let me give you a couple things that Errol Spence does in that ring, and just a couple comments that Ryan Garcia said. Like, for instance, Ryan Garcia said he wouldn't fight an entire fight southpaw, even though he can go southpaw. He would use it strategically for certain points to surprise his opponent and catch him with certain shots. So he goes southpaw to get the angle on an opponent so he can land a certain shot, but he's not going to fight the whole fight going southpaw, which is interesting. And of course, a number of fighters in boxing fight and on occasion go southpaw. Gennady Golovkin does it. It's called shifting. Danny Jacobs sometimes does it. Mayweather has done it, So a number of fighters do it. But Hagley used to do it, of course, switch it whenever he wanted to. But, of course, that little point there that was noted is an important point for us to consider in the future. Now, here's a couple points to consider in your mind when you're thinking of a Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence. And I want to just give you guys some of the skill set of Errol Spence, because I think a lot of people do not understand how skilled this guy is. He's very, very skilled. All right. And very, very technical, but he's very, very skilled as well. And Terrence Crawford has some skills. I would not call Terrence Crawford more skilled than Errol Spence. Maybe their skills are about comparable. Now, the thing that people say is with Terrence Crawford is more fluid and he's got more jazz in him. That means he's able to adapt on the fly. I don't quite agree with that 100%, because Errol Spence also is able to adjust and adapt. He's also a very smart fighter. He's just much more precise with what he does, much more rehearsed. Terrence, he also adapts on the fly, but he does it in a much more rehearsed fashion. What I mean by that is he uses honed skills. So Errol is much more sharper than Terrence. People talk about Terrence's speed. Obviously, they didn't watch Errol Spence versus Mikey Garcia. Errol is also very quick, very fast. Against Sean Porter, he showed that. He matched Sean Porter's speed and intensity. And Sean Porter's very quick and very fast. So I don't agree with that either. So I think a lot of people seeing the Sean Porter-Errol Spence fight, just to add a little bit more conversation to this, assume that Terrence Crawford will have an easier time with Errol Spence. But Terrence Crawford doesn't have the skill set of a Sean Porter. He doesn't fight like Sean Porter. He doesn't move like Sean Porter. He's not aggressive like Sean Porter. So I don't really see, and he's not as strong as Sean Porter. That's a fact. So I don't see, what people are saying. I don't agree with it at all. And I'm not an Errol Spence fan like that. Okay? It's just that I don't agree with it. I'm not a Terrence Crawford hater either. So let me break down some of the skill sets that Errol Spence has that can be to his advantage against Terrence Crawford. And let me break down some of the advantages Terrence Crawford has that will give him an advantage against Errol Spence. So first of all, Both guys can fight southpaw. Errol Spence is a southpaw. However, Errol Spence does switch it up and go orthodox when he finds an angle where he can land an opponent. So he can switch it as well, but he doesn't do it for the entire fight. He doesn't fight the entire fight one way or the other. He only uses when, as an opportunity he sees, sets up his opponent, and then he will switch on you, and he will use that opportunity to score on you and use his defense. And he's very defensively responsible. Errol Spence changes levels on the drop of a dime. That's a skill set that's incredible. He got down to Mikey Garcia's level. Bend the knees. He can bend really way down. He shoots shots at different levels. Boxing is a three-dimensional sport. I asked you guys a question in the polls. Nobody answered me, which is, what does it mean by boxing deals with the squared circle? And the square circle is very easy to explain. The ring is in the shape of a square, but you're moving around in a circle. And the idea behind that is this ring is not circular, so there are corners to the ring. So as you move around the ring, one, the aggressor can push you to the corner, or two, you can move to the corner yourself, but you're still moving in a circular fashion, whether it's clockwise or anti-clockwise, or you're changing it up all the time. That makes boxing very interesting. But in fact, according to my dude, Troy Killertainment, you guys need to check that channel out. You're actually boxing in a three-dimensional space. That is totally different to squared circle. If you think that the ring you're entering in is a square or flat surface, you are wrong. When you enter that ring, and Troy Killertainment talks about this a lot, which is really great. He kind of opened my eyes, even though I kind of had an idea about that, and I was always talking about boxing in three-dimensional space. He started breaking it down in a way that I just never saw the specifics. Like, there's a literal science and specifics to it, and the school of thought behind it that Troy just kind of opened up and spoke a little bit about, and then he closed it back down. And it's a great channel. That's why I say, if you guys like boxing, if you really want boxing, if you appreciate the sport of boxing, please check out that channel. All right, so back to what I was saying. I did a workout with Clarissa Shields. When was it? Yesterday. It was great. I want to stop this telecast and do part 2, but I'm not going to do that. Let me go through the specifics. So Errol Spence, he changes levels, and he does it very, very well, so that he does not get countered when he's changing levels. Usually, he changes levels to be defensively responsible, staying outside of the line of fire. He does it excellently. He gets caught, generally speaking, in boxing, when he's standing straight up and he didn't get his high guard into position quickly enough. So he does get caught. And Sean Porter can get past his jab. Now, Errol Spence kind of lives off the jab. He doesn't really live off of feinting, which Terrence Crawford does a little bit of feinting. He doesn't, but he lives off the jab. So he's fundamentally sound, Errol Spence. But his jab, he varies the pace of the jab, the speed of the jab, and the type of jab that he will use. So that's another interesting thing about Errol Spence. He's not the most flashy guy in the world. Terrence is much more flashy than Errol. But Errol also has this other skill set, which is very important in boxing. And it's the one thing, and even Floyd Mayweather even commented on it, but I observed it the first time I saw him. His pivot work is ridiculous, ladies and gentlemen. That is the thing that separates Errol Spence from Keith Thurman, Sean Porter, Terrence Crawford, Manny Pacquiao, and a host of different boxers in boxing. Whether it's Shakur Stevenson, even Devin Haney at this point hasn't showed me, even though he has it, he hasn't shown me that pivot work. He can pivot 180 degrees like that, real quick. An 180-degree pivot is very difficult to do. It takes years to do. and does it smoothly. And he can pivot and change levels at the same time, which makes him video game-like. He has a ridiculously strong stance. His stance is perfected. He can stay outside of the line of fire, or he can put up his two guard and stand a little bit more straight in the line of fire. He's not a guy that's that easy to hit clean. You have to throw a bunch of combinations and one or two will catch him, or you have to ambush him. Shawn Porter has the bob and weave style, which Terrence Crawford does not have. That is why Shawn Porter was able to negate the jab. He also has what we call a counter combinational style. He'll set you up with a shot, and then he will come with a combination while bobbing and weaving coming to the inside. Mike Tyson-esque. And that's something that skill Terrence Crawford does not have. Okay? He's not the most accurate with it. Shawn doesn't finish. If he was, man, that would be a crazy thing. He'd be a beast. But he's working on his accuracy. Shawn Porter has a lot more skills, not as refined and honed, than Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence put together. Okay? He has Aaron Pryor skills. He has Tyson-like skills. He has boxing on the outside. It reminds me of, what does he remind me of? I don't know. I've never seen nobody box like that. It's a weirdish kind of rhythmic movement. Kind of reminds me of a footballer boxing on the outside, to be honest with you. But he boxes on the outside in a very interesting way. And he uses pivot work. He does not bounce. Errol Spence is one of the fighters you can't read. His rhythm is arrhythmic. And if Errol combines boxing, because he can box, with his aggressive nature, Errol Spence, instead of just walking down a guy like he was trying to walk down Terrence Crawford, to walk down Shawn Porter, if he had decided to box Shawn Porter and respect distance and mix it up with an aggressive style towards Shawn Porter, the fight would have been a lot more interesting and much more one-sided Errol Spence. But his game plan was to walk down Shawn Porter and stop him. But he can box, and very, very, very well. And he also has different beats to his boxing. What do I mean by different beats? One, he can just change it up and start bouncing. Okay? Almost Mayweather-esque like for a minute. And then he can go back to his solid stance and pivoting. He does tight in close pivots, and that's because he's an infighter and he likes to fight on the inside. Terrence Crawford can fight a bit on the inside, by the way, but Errol made his career out of fighting on the inside. That's his thing. He wants to get close to you and fight on the inside. He can box on the outside if he has to. Another skill set that Errol Spence has is he can switch it a bit. He can go orthodox on you to get angles again. Another skill that Errol Spence has, which a lot of people underestimate and they don't really look at, is his ability to slip to the inside of a fighter. He can slip to the inside. He will roll in or roll out, or he'll slip to the inside. Now, because he's had to face a lot of opponents where he didn't respect their power and just walk them down and knock them out, a lot of people did not see the other aspects and skills. He has a lot of skill that we still haven't seen, according to some people around him, his trainer, Derek James. And so there are things he does because he has to fight bigger guys. He's fought guys who are, light heavyweights and stuff, and he has to box them. So he can box very, very well. And so I think a lot of people and we saw some of that against Mikey Garcia. And we even saw a little bit of it against Shawn Porter, even though he was trying to walk down Shawn Porter most of the time. Not really trying to take a step back. So you get caught a lot more. But if you look at Errol Spence, he's got a variety of other skills, such as he knows where to place his feet. I said his pivot work is great, but he knows how to place his feet also to get the right angle of approach to his opponents. All right? Now, he's not as devastating as people say. He's not as powerful a puncher as people say. He breaks down fighters and then gets them out of there. And sometimes he succeeds, sometimes he doesn't. He has some other skills that I will talk about right now, which is Errol Spence, though he works off the jab and although he works off of feinting, he has a feint that is very interesting. He has several feints. But one of the feints he has is a feint where he would change levels and then he would fire the straight left to your head. So he can shoot an up jab, a shotgun jab from low to high. It's very effective. He doesn't only punch with power. He can find you with range. But again, like I said, he works off the jab, off an angle. Sometimes he stays a little too long in front of an opponent and he can get countered, which Terence Crawford would be to Terence Crawford's advantage. So let's go to Terence Crawford now. Terence Crawford, obviously, the first thing you think about is his switch hitting. But Terence Crawford also has that beautiful, he uses the jab, but he also uses a lot of feints. So Terence Crawford will feint you, feint you, feint you. Now, Terence Crawford, unlike Errol Spence, is actually rhythmic. He actually has a rhythm to him. He does a little shuffle and he moves, so you can read him a bit. But at the same time, he's also quick. He's sharp with his punches, much more elastic, though. And on top of that, Terence Crawford generally tries to figure out his opponent in the ring. He loves to brawl and bang a lot. So if he gets the opportunity to exchange with you, he will. But on top of that, he's smart. He uses IQ. He doesn't always adjust to a fighter very quickly, but he has IQ and he adjusts. He's not as sharp as Errol. He's not as precise as Errol. But he is a fighter that has a lot of, you can see he's been trained, and even now you can see he's fully acclimatized to welterweight. He's very powerful and strong now, much stronger than when he first came into welterweight. Terence Crawford also has that aggressive streak. He has that mean streak in you. So if he gets hurt, if you get hurt, he's going to try and finish you. And he's very strong. He has a good chin. His boxing IQ, he uses different styles. You know, you see a little bit of Ray Robinson with the jab and a little shuffle backwards and forwards. You see a little bit of Henry Armstrong, and when he's fighting on the inside, he collapses the arms very well, protects his body very well. Shoots a lot of uppercuts. He also can fight at any range, mid-range, you know, on the outside. He can fight on the inside. He generally, when he dictates fights at least, he's able to control his opponent using occupying them, and he will explore if he has to use one side or the other, so he can occupy you on either side because he switch hits to keep your hands at home. On the inside, he doesn't even use his forearms too much. He kind of covers up with the two guard, and then he will rip shots to the body. He'll pivot around you, etc. He does more of a kind of skip shuffle. So Terence more shuffles. He also changes levels, and he does very well doing that. Not exactly how Errol Spence changes levels, and not as precisely and not as fluidly. He's more of a kind of sort of a, how do I explain it? He has a rhythm, but it's kind of more of a herky-jerky rhythm. Really has, I think, even if nobody was training him at the point, he has a good sense of what he should do. Okay? He's not a fighter like Mayweather, in that Mayweather sets traps in such a way that he knows what you're going to do next. Terence sets traps as well, but especially in the most recent opponents, and we haven't really seen the best of Terence Crawford, unfortunately, because the opposition that he's been facing, we've not really seen his brilliance. I'm sure the people who are in the gym have seen his brilliance. But he sets traps too, but the way how he trap sets is more based on the opponent than it is based on his rehearsing of it. So he's not as clean with his trap setting as, say, a Errol Spence. Errol Spence is much more cleaner. Terence gets hit in boxing, obviously, but it's shown us that he can make the necessary adjustments. He still might get hit, but he makes the necessary adjustments to get his opponent out there. All right, so having said all of that, you decide who you think would win a matchup between Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence. Both have the will to win. Both are tough as nails. We saw Sean Porter kind of tire out and wear down Errol Spence a bit in the final rounds, especially after Errol Spence had knocked down Sean Porter. I wanted to see Sean Porter versus Terrence Crawford so I could weigh in how Terrence Crawford meets that challenge against Sean Porter, or would Sean Porter prevail? But those guys are not interested in facing each other, which is kind of stupid, because in boxing, you want that litmus test. But it is what it is. I would say that there's not much that separates the two fighters from each other in terms of who you think would win. It's a 50-50 fight, to be honest with you. But let me see what you guys think, who would prevail, given those facts that I just gave you. Finally, we have Claressa Shields versus Layla Ali that's being talked about. I would say that if that fight comes to fruition, that's going to be a huge fight. I'm going to say without a doubt, Claressa Shields is the one I'm backing to win that fight. If Layla Ali pulls that off, that would be one of the greatest wins ever in the history of boxing. I don't care, man, woman, whatever, because she'll come out of retirement, maybe have a tune-up fight, and then face Claressa Shields. I can't favor Ali in that fight. It's just not. One, she hasn't been doing boxing for a long time. Two, boxing has changed since she's been fighting for women's boxing. It's just a totally different ball game now. And so, it'll be hard for me to favor Layla in any way, shape, or form. That's basically my talk on boxing. You guys can check out this video. I want to hear what you guys think, who we pick and choose. You can check out my polls as well. I have some very interesting polls out there. I want to hear what you guys have to say. Remember, who, in your opinion, is the greatest fighter you have ever seen? Mind you, it must be seen. Means it must be footage of the person. Who is the greatest fighter that you have ever seen? On that note, I'm what you need. If you like this channel, you can share, comment, subscribe, and donate via Western Union or MoneyGram. Have a great day, guys. Peace.